Okay, I promise I will not do any Taco Bell stories on this one. Okay, so I get to introduce Holger Schmidt. Now, he is the founder of Fluxus, and Holger Schmidt is nominated for pushing diagnostic and life science measurement forward with technology that can detect tiny amounts of biological signals, including protein and RNA. Now, I spent a lot of time on this word, and I probably will still get it wrong. His optoflow, now, ChatGPT says it's I, but optofluidic. Wait, wait, that's wrong. See, I said it wrong. See, I got that wrong, right? Now I'll say it again. Optofluidic, right? Okay, see, I got it right. See, could it be any worse? Yeah. Actually, I did not plan that out. That was actually a wrong one. Yeah, that was not planned. Okay, work. Traces back to UC Santa Cruz innovation and has been tied to commercialization efforts through Fluxus and broader diagnostic adoption. So just to let you know, 40% of that, I did not understand any of that. So I went to ChatGPT and I still didn't understand it. But what is awesome that we have somebody here at UCSC, we have somebody here in Santa Cruz that actually does understand optofluidic. Let's give it up for Holger Schmidt.
Okay, optofluidic. Right. Thank you, Matthew, for that great introduction. It's an honor to be here. And when I was informed about this award, I was told to reflect on my journey and be inspiring. So those are tall orders. I figured instead of delving deeper into the optofluidics tech and how that all works, I'll focus on the other fun part of all this journey, which is the people. And of course, there are many people who were part of this journey from a long time ago to here, but I think I was able, for the purposes of the story with Fluxus, to distill it down to three, kind of like the Christmas Carol, but instead of past, present, and future, I distilled it down to education, research, and commercialization. And so I want to acknowledge everybody who influenced me, but those three played really a pivotal role, and there are three pivotal events along the way. And so the first one takes me all the way back to 1993 when I was a physics student in Germany. And one night I was hanging out with my friend, Udo Gomez. We were both working on a master's thesis, and we had a lot of Udo's fabulous green tea. So much so that I could barely sleep all night, I remember. But at some point during that evening, we started talking about, well, wouldn't it be great to get a year fellowship and do some research in the US? So that's where that all started, and I'm still here. So Udo was really pivotal to start that conversation to pursue my education in the United States and get my PhD here. Little side note, after deciding to go for it, I talked to my then advisor and said, where would be a good place to do some semiconductor laser research, which is what I was interested in at the time. And he said, well, there's two options. You can either go to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, or you can go to UC Santa Barbara in California. And I'll let you guess what I ended up choosing. Okay, so fast forward about 10 years, 2002. I had recently started my assistant professor position at UCSC and was starting to build up my research in my group when I got an email from my friend Aaron Hawkins, who was a fellow graduate student with me at UC Santa Barbara, in case you were actually wondering where I went. And Aaron said, well, I'm going to be a professor myself soon in the fall. I'm going to go to BYU, and wouldn't it be fun to collaborate together and maybe have a meeting to discuss that? So that summer in 2002, Aaron visited me, and it turned out to be great synergy because I had this idea of how to guide light through little microchannels on a chip, which is normally not possible unless you do some special treatment to the chip to keep the light in the hollow channel. but I didn't have a fabrication facility to make them. And Aaron said, well, I'm going to direct this clean room at BYU that's underutilized, so let's do something together. And turns out Aaron had some really cool ideas for how to do the fabrication part as well, and that's where we kind of started the whole idea and took it from there. Another side note, only a few months later, I met Dave Deemer, a professor of biomolecular engineering at UCSC, from whom you'll hear in a bit. And I talked to Dave because I had this idea that we were pretty quickly realizing that it would be even better to fill the channels with liquid that would keep the light in even better, and maybe would be able to detect even a single molecule with a light flash. So you wouldn't count them one by one instead of going through the whole PCR process, for example. And so I ran that by Dave, and Dave was so kind to support our initial efforts with some of his grant money, and he also joined us as a collaborator on our first NIH grant proposal, from which all the work over the last 20 years has really spawned. So that was fantastic and triggered a bunch of research in this research phase, and that was going well. And a few years later, Aaron, Dave, and myself, and a grad student from my group, we started a company, a first company, to try to commercialize this idea to detect RNA or viruses on a chip. And we had some success, but eventually we had to shut it back down because we didn't quite have the clinical test results yet, and we were lacking the business expertise for somebody to really run and scale up a startup company. It was all just us scientists trying to do this. So that brings me to the third event, another about 10 years later in 2015. At that time, I was working on a project, NIH project, to detect Ebola virus with our technology, back when Ebola was a thing. And part of our team, one key member of our team was Rich Matthews, a renowned chemistry professor from UC Berkeley. And Rich had, in his lab, he had developed this technology to handle a biological sample with microvalves to basically pre-treat it so that it could be ready for us to detect with the optical detection mechanism and directly count the viruses. And so that project was going great. And turns out that Rich also has an entrepreneurial streak himself and had been involved in many startups and companies over the years. And as we started to really have the technical results that we were lacking previously, it seemed maybe a good idea to try to commercialize this technology again. And one day Rich said, hey, I want you to meet, how about we have lunch with a couple of people that I would like to introduce you to and see what comes out of it. And so in the summer or in October of 2015, we had this lunch meeting, and I was introduced to what then became the CEO of our new company, Fluxus. So that's what we've been doing since then. And as a final side note, that CA that I was meeting in that lunch meeting, Peter Wagner, it turns out that he grew up in a town 6 miles from where I grew up in Germany. True story. And so I think that goes to show that it is a small world after all, but it also seemed like a good omen for the company. And that turned out to be true because eventually we were acquired by Fuji Radio Diagnostics, who have complementary expertise in reagents and also scaling up a product to commercial levels and distribution. So that is in its final stages. And kind of the end of the three people that really kind of in these three events that really brought us to this point. And so what have we learned? I don't know. Maybe not a whole lot, but maybe that all our paths and successes are determined by conversations with interesting people, and often random and unexpected, but just at the right time. And so maybe the lesson is to stay open to chatting with interesting people, and because you never know when you have to talk about them and thank them on a Wednesday night in a jazz club. Thank you.